Welcome to another episode of Bourbon and Rum. This is a podcast of two brothers from opposite ends of the spectrum. My name's Kent. I'm a rum drinker, and I'm from the left side of the aisle.
And I'm Kyle. I like bourbon, tend to be a little more conservative. Join us as we explore this experiment. Can two brothers from different sides of the political spectrum have a civil conversation and celebrate our differences?
What are you drinking?
I am drinking a glass of Michter's bourbon, US 1 bourbon. It's kind of their entry-level expression. You know, Michter is one of the kind of classic whiskey distilleries. Been a long time. I think its roots go back as far as like the mid 1700s, but it was reestablished back in 2004. They have a lot of really high-end stuff. Like if you ever look at like some of these resellers of stuff, I mean, they've got like their celebration bourbon and sour mash. I mean, these things go for like $25,000 a bottle. Never had any of that stuff, but just their standard go-to bourbon's pretty good stuff. Real caramely, vanilla, a little bit of oak in there, very smooth, you know, about 90 proof. And I've had their 10-year-old bourbon too in a bar before. That's really good, but again, hard to find. And you know, it's nuts how, you know, certain bourbons have just gone crazy, and that Michter's is one of those. Like some of the Michter's other expressions, it's just like they're super hard to find, you know. And so like some take off in popularities and more than others, but yeah. But good stuff. Well, what are you drinking today?
Sounds good. By the way, that looks really dark to me.
Yeah, it is.
Like,
yeah,
it's got a lot of depth to it.
Yeah, it's really good.
I am drinking a Christmas present. I have a Quackenbush amber rum produced by the Albany Distilling Company in Albany, New York.
Oh, nice.
So a little a micro distillery, which is kind of interesting. Like, I mean, it shouldn't surprise anybody, but I think within the last 10 years is all that's really a phenomenon. You know, before that, you saw breweries in places and wineries.
Yeah.
I think that some states have loosened laws to make it more possible. We've got a local outfit that's a distiller up the road. And it's interesting to do that with rum. Like whiskey, especially old whiskey, old bourbon, it's going to be really hard for, you know, Chad and Bill's distillery out of the back of their yard to come up with a really good bourbon. I'm just going to go out and say it. I think it's going to be hard to do that if you don't have the system, if you don't have the access to the oak and all of that. But rum's a different story. You know, rum's distilled in every little island across the Caribbean, and it seems like it lends itself kind of well to small runs, small production, startup kinds of stuff. I would put tequila in the same. You know, it originated in places like that, small batch stuff. So anyway, it's very good. It's light.
Do you think it's
crisp.
hard to? I'm sorry. Do you think it's hard to age it though in a place like Albany? I mean, doesn't it kind of need a warmer climate?
Yeah, I don't know. This is good. It's it doesn't state a time on it. It's got a lot of rough around the edges. You know, like it could benefit from a longer age. But that's an interesting point because you do age rum in these really hot tropical locations, and I don't know what that does to the concentration of it or whatever.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, they're aging bourbon up north. There other whiskeys up north, so it's maybe just a different expression, a different flavor profile you get.
Yeah. But
I did laugh though when you talked about laws changing. You know, it reminds me of the time a buddy of mine and I here in Texas were looking to do some brewing some beer. So we went to those beer supply stores where you buy all the hops and all the stuff. And and I and I was oblivious, and I said, "Hey, do you have stuff that you can distill liquor too?" And he's like, "Well, that's a class 3 felony." Like, oh, okay. But he said, "But if you'd like to distill fuel," he says, with holding up quotation marks, he's like, "Oh, we got all the equipment."
That's
you know,
that's aisle 3.
yeah, that's right.
Well, this is maybe a little different. You suggested we chat about an article that you shared, and we'll share that on our website. I think I can do it as a free, it's a Wall Street Journal article, so it'll be behind the paywall, but I think I can share it as a free link our listeners can get.
Full disclosure, I don't have a subscription to Wall Street Journal, but I found it some other place that it had copied it to. So
Yeah. I think it actually got a lot of play because it was referred to by a lot of other people. It was a big deal when this article came out. What's it been out? A month now? When was this published? It was a big scoop, December 19th, a really big
yeah,
scoop for the journal. Why don't you give the 411 of what it's about?
I looked up the just we talk about bent of people. Does somebody have an axe to grind? The lead reporter on it, this Annie Linsky, she actually used to be a reporter at the Washington Post. Now she's been not at the Wall Street Journal. So I think you could probably say there's not somebody. Ann Coulter didn't spit it out. Let's put it that way.
Right.
It's somebody who's a bona fide journalist, and they interviewed like 50 people. A lot of them, it's like aides to cabinet members, it's other White House people. They didn't talk to like the chief of staff or the national security advisor, but they're talking to other aides and people. And I mean, essentially, it is that starting like with several examples of early in the spring, after he took office, kind of a widespread understanding that, he was slowing down and wasn't necessarily didn't exhibit the stamina and the mental acuity of somebody else. And I like that in of itself to me isn't like much of a news flash, because I feel like most people that were looking at him were thinking that. But I think where it becomes controversial, and I guess where I wanted to take you down the path of, because I was just curious your thoughts, is at that same time, like he would fall on the stairs someplace, and people are like, "Oh man, he's losing it." But there was a kind of a concerted effort by the administration and by, I'd say, supporting members of the media to say, "Hey, there's nothing wrong with the guy. He's as sharp as a tack." And this evidence was essentially, there's a series of things they brought up and they talked about, but it was pretty widespread evidence that he's not the Joe Biden he was when he was vice president. Again, I don't think that's
Sure.
a huge news flash, but it was concerning to the point of like, I don't know, like starting in the spring of 2021, they were like, well, he's got good days and bad days. And on the bad days, we just try to cancel meetings, and on the good days, maybe we try to get him, and make sure you keep the meetings short because his attention span doesn't last much longer, and we start losing him later in the day. And having a group of people like huddling around him to make sure he knows where he's going. And I guess I was interested, your take, not so much like beating you up about, oh, you said the guy's fine, he's not, because I never get the vibe from you that you thought, you didn't think he was a specimen of top mental acuity as it was. I think you kind of knew there was some, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I don't think the fact he was off his game was a shocker to you. You just, I think, were of the view that you're okay with that. I guess where I thought of you is this thing about kind of your theory is that some aides made the debate happen is a way to, call out the problem and get him out of the way so that we'd bring in Kamala and have another opportunity. I'm just curious to dig into that more, to think about who in that administration is pushing what agenda. Because there was, one of the things they were talking about is he had an inner circle with him of guys that there's a chunk of guys in there that have been with him for the last 40 years. I mean, for all his public life, he's got a group of folks. And I'm thinking, those guys are probably not wanting the show to end. So, and then it becomes like, what's the group that would have been wanting the show to end? And, you know, if this was known 6 months into the administration, why the timing of when they did the outing of him for the reelection? You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I think those are good questions. A couple of responses, and I'll respond to your specific question first. And of course I have no idea what went on inside. It was an interesting article about the efforts to cover him, and the covering was largely born. I'm summarizing in the article, was largely born out of that personal circle,
Yeah.
Jill and those close friends and aides that have been around him. What I thought was a little striking was the degree to which that firewall was used to protect him from like cabinet officers. Like that was a big part of it, was not just like we're going to BS the media, but
Right.
we're going to insulate the rest of the executive branch, people that are his direct reports. So I think that that's interesting. I still maintain I have no idea who or how. And you're right, because you raised this before. Like, well, the people that are there, they don't want the ride to be over. However, I think anybody with any sense would have had to have concluded at some point, whether it was in the first 6 months of the administration or January of 24, a year ago, when they're looking down the barrel of it. I think that anybody on that close circle list had to know that he was never going to get through a debate with Trump intact.
Yeah.
So then the decision becomes, all right. So I will say this. I love Joe Biden. I loved him as vice president. I think he's a patriot. I think he loves this country and its institutions. But clearly, he couldn't see clear enough to say, I'm not up for this anymore. And it's a very rare person that has the ability to do that. In fact, my history reading, you probably know this, but not a lot of people know this, that presidents serving 2 terms was not a law until after the Roosevelt administration. It was a tradition, and it was a tradition because George Washington, after his second term, said, I'm going back to the farm. And no one was going to say, well, I'm going to do more than George Washington. And in fact, this is just an aside, but interestingly, prior to that, George Washington, his senior officers at the end of the Revolutionary War were ready to proclaim him king of the United States. Remember that, because we're under Articles of Confederation before the Constitution. And it was literally like all he had to do was say, yeah, I'll take the job. And it was King Washington. And he chose not to.
He could have
Pardon?
been he could have been the Vladimir Putin of his age. He could have served for 25 years and become worth $10 billion. Yeah.
He absolutely could have, and he left. And the amount of respect that gained, and then obviously then he comes back as president once they do the Constitution and work that out. But even King George said, when he heard that Washington resigned his commission and went back home after the war, he was like, he's the greatest man that ever lived. That
Right.
was just a giant move. Anyway, and it's one of the things that endears Washington about that he walked away from essentially a kingship at the end of the war. And then once he'd served as president for 2 years, he walked away from that and said, I'm going back to the farm. And that bar was there, and it only got crossed during World War II when Franklin Roosevelt went a total of 4. So I don't know. I can't fault Joe Biden for loving the job and wanting to do it. I think that he literally believed when he ran in 2016. No, wait, what am I doing? 2020. He literally believed that it was him standing between disaster. So I don't know. Like, I read this article and it's a little scary, but like, I get it. I understand the motivations of these people. And I will say that it sort of underscores the thing that maybe the president isn't the biggest. Actually, apparently we've run for 4 years kind of without having a president. And, you know, things are okay. We might quibble about the details. Um, Back to what happened, I do believe that all of the same inner circle that was covering for him, they had to know that a live debate with Trump was going to be a bloodbath that he could not withstand. And so I think that they had to know that this was going to be over. It's going to be over in April when we do this, or June, or it's going to be over in September, but it's over. And so let's opt for early. I
Well,
wish we
then,
could
I
have done
mean,
it sooner.
yeah, I mean, it seems like if I'm a Democrat, the people I'm pissed at the most are that inner circle that propped him up during that time because everybody saw where he was at mentally in the spring of 21. They should have been like, okay, we got to get ready for the next go round, and it ain't going to be him. But
So, point of order, and I have to reread the article, and maybe I'm making a distinction without a difference, but I think this matters. A lot of it was about, you said he had good days and bad days. They worried about his schedule, like he's better in the morning, he takes long naps in the afternoons. But I don't know that anybody said that like those are pretty normal things for a guy of his age. It's not like he's got Alzheimer's disease and is incapable of doing anything. What I gathered from it is like when he's there mentally, and this is what I had thought, because you'd see him speak in things, and yeah, clearly the guardrails are pretty high, right? Like he's not taking a lot of questions from the press gaggle or whatever. But I don't think that like when he was on task, when he was thinking about something, I haven't seen even in this article implications that his judgment was gone and he was just out of it. I think he was.
well, I mean, they said he couldn't remember talking points, and like when they would maybe with donors, they would have to give him the questions in advance, and the guy still couldn't remember the questions that they prepped him on. It's like,
Yeah. Well, yeah.
I mean, I
Yeah.
don't, I'm sure even if you had a conversation with the guy today, he's not like out of it. I mean,
That's what
he's a
I'm trying to
smart guy,
say. I think
but
I get, I don't know, but even reading this article, I think he's probably more with it than Reagan was at the end of his second term,
yeah, that could be
and
fair.
certainly more with it than Woodrow Wilson was by the end of his term because he'd had a stroke. He was, his wife was running the show.
Yeah, well, and I
Um,
guess that's where I was going is just, you know, okay, makes sense. You're at the end of two terms and you're losing it. Okay, the next guy's coming in, but you're starting out your presidency, and you may not be if 100% is like in your prime, fully sharp, and 0% is, you know, uh, catatonic. I mean, he's probably north of 50, but
right. But this is
what
100% kind of a
percentage
job.
is, yeah, you want to be pretty highly functioning. So,
Yeah, it's kind of a big deal. Um, well, okay. So let's play this out. Okay. So first of all, I don't believe that real inner circle. I don't believe this like freaking dawned on them on January 21st, right? Because if he wasn't great in the spring of 21,
yeah,
he probably wasn't fabulous during the campaign.
right.
So what do you do? And this is the question. So you're one of this inner circle. What do you do? You're sitting around one day and we're like, okay, well, it's January. We're getting cabinet officers confirmed here and we're naming judges. And pretty soon he's talking about a story about him and Jimmy on the school. You're like, whoa, what are we doing here? What do you do? Was there a sweet spot to fix it? I don't know. If you go too early, it's a big scandal. I mean, it's going to be scandalous anyway. But if you go, hey, it's March. Hey, good news. We're 3 months in, but the dude's, we're going to call the 25th Amendment because he's not capable. That doesn't look good. If I'm a well, I am a Democrat. What I'm mad about is these people know the game of politics. They know the blood sport that this is. And what they should have had is a beer with each other in about March. Said, all right, here's the deal. He's not going to get better. It's not great now. What do we do between now and the 24 election? If we are indeed a patriot, if we are caring about the country, what's our moment? And I believe that their action that they came up with was to schedule an early debate so they could get him out of the way and they could scoop Kamala in there. And I think that was too late. I think somebody should have said a year and a half ago, they should have found something. And but then that's what I think they should have done. But then what do you do? Like, how much juice have you got to have to tell the president of the United States you're not capable of doing the job and you need to step down in the middle of your term? Who's going to do that?
Well, I guess where I was going, and it's funny because I love how your thought process around this. It kind of brings up a fun topic because, and I feel like we all probably imagine conversations and activities in the administrations of whoever it is we're rooting for, and how you would imagine those work in Joe Biden's presidency might be different than how I might imagine they work in Trump's presidency. And your theoretical approach of how things are going down in Trump's presidency is probably different than my theoretical approach at Biden. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like,
Right.
it makes for good conversation because it's like, you got a great point of how it could have gone down. I guess the only alternative I would throw out there is one of the things the article talked about is that many of these close aides were doing things normally done by the president. Whether it's, like they talked about Obama and he would pull these cabinet guys aside and say, okay, let me explain to you how this works. And they were like, well, they would have an aide do that. Or, so these guys and gals, they knew during, many of these are part of the campaign. They knew the state he was in the campaign, but then they see he wins. Okay, he's in. He's not up to the whole thing. Now we jump in and we take this role on. Now these guys are de facto members of the administration who are kind of taking this quasi presidential role. I guess where I would have viewed this going is it going to your point, like, hey, we're keeping the lights on here and we all have a share in the power of running the presidency. Let's get this guy running next go round and we're going to get another 4 years to do our thing. But then you got this debate. So why? And I mean, that is the whole wrinkle in this. It's like that would make sense, but then I guess they couldn't have prevented the debate or what? How did that debate even come about?
Well, you can't not debate him. I mean, that's
Yeah.
what I'm saying. You can't not debate Donald Trump. And if you're part of this crowd that's buffering the dude's phone calls from the Secretary of Defense, you know that he ain't getting out of that debate
Yeah.
unscathed. Like that's the day it's over.
So
So
maybe they were all like, hey, this is great, guys, and we're going to be running the show for 4 years, but it's not going to last.
well, and how many of them, like, it's secret at first, but had Kamala won,
Yeah.
you might have seen a lot more credit taking for the snatching victory from the
Yes.
jaws of defeat. And in a way that you might not now, because it
Yeah.
didn't work out. The game didn't play out like we hoped. I do want to point out, though, and the difference between what a Trump world would be like. What I don't want to do, like, I think we're aligned in kind of reading that article, and what I don't dispute what the article says. I think it's well researched and kind of bomb proof. I think that they know what they were talking about. I don't think it's a bad thing for presidents to rely heavily on aides. And in fact, I don't think you would, like, nobody could get away with Trump what they got away with Biden, because he's not going to suffer himself to be handled in the same way that Biden would. I don't think that Trump is that reliant on aides for low level things. Yeah, but I think he does it all himself. He's much more hands-on manager. I don't know that that's necessarily a good thing. Like, I think it was bad. It's unfortunate that Biden's in such a shape that his people have had to do that level of handling. But I don't think it's a bad thing for people to really rely heavily on staff to do even big decisions. Like that seems smart to me. in this case, we're talking about a pathology that underlays that.
Yeah,
But
I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing as long as the guy running the show is actually running the show.
right. Well, yeah,
or,
or
or it's obliviously running the show.
well, or picks good people. I don't feel like you've got to have somebody who solely themselves is it, and this is my experience with I don't want to get into it too much, but I work in higher education and large universities. And I'm just going to say, not at the level of the president of the United States, but a university president has so many constituencies that they've got to answer to, so many different things that they've got to babysit all the time, that if they tried to do it themselves, they'd go crazy. You really have to rely a lot on your staff in a job like that.
Oh,
And
absolutely. And I don't again like none of those cabinet secretaries are they're not missing out because they got one few calls with Biden. I don't think that for a
right,
minute. I just think it's the shocking part or the troublesome part of the story wasn't that an aide was talking to a cabinet member. It was that the aide was talking to the cabinet member because the presumption is the president couldn't do it himself. That's the
right.
scary.
No, I
But
hear you.
I'd throw you a bone someplace else, but before you celebrate this bone, be careful because it could come back to bite you. Um, I will throw you a bone in that not all aides probably tell the truth either.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Um, but let me pivot this a little bit. So Trump clearly doesn't have the level of impairment that Biden does, but Trump will be the second oldest president we've ever had. And I don't think Trump is all that he was 8 years ago.
Sure.
But think about the way that he works with subordinates. And who the hell's going to save us if Trump loses his stuff?
Well,
I mean, well, I
I
mean,
would,
kind of joking, but kind of a serious question. There is no 40-year circle of cronies that are going to bail Donald Trump out. Because
no,
even
but
if they
it's,
tried to, he'd shut him up and do his own thing anyway.
well, but I think it's also going to be based on he have a good eye for talent and he picks talented people. He's got talented people surrounding him who are going to be very involved. I think you're going to see JD Vance much more involved in this presidency than Kamala Harris was in the Biden presidency.
That makes me feel really good.
You said that I thought you said you didn't mind JD Vance.
Uh, no, I didn't mind him when I read his book, but boy, he went off the cliff.
No way.
Um, uh, well, the senator from Ohio at odds with the mayor of Springfield, Ohio, because he was trying to fan the flames of some bullshit that the boss dropped in a debate. Yeah, that's another topic. Is everything that's wrong with JD Vance? We'll make that an hour or a 2 hour block for that one, if you want. But
Well, then we need a part. We're going to need a part two to the Joe Biden non-compos mentis episode.
no, I mean, again, without being in the detail though. So seriously, what are the odds that Donald Trump is going to hit January 19th of 2029, raring to go and no impediments?
Yeah, I mean, I don't. Again,
And if he does start to lose it, what happens? Who's going to fix that? Because you mentioned the eye for talent, but he doesn't really empower anybody to do anything.
I disagree with that. I think a lot of his people did a lot of things. I think what you have with the Trump administration is more accountability, though. And if somebody doesn't get it done, they get fired, and that doesn't happen in a lot of administrations. And that's one of the things that a lot of people like. So, I mean, I don't. I think the people are going to do a lot on their own, but they're going to have to be up to the job. I think you're right. I mean, back to the continuum. If 100% is at the highest mental state possible and 0% is catatonic, yeah, everybody's going down at some level. It's just a question of how fast.
Yeah, yeah, and I guess the most frightening thing about that article that we read was the fact that it doesn't appear that Biden knew how bad Biden was. And if you know that you're losing it and you're actively delegating to people that you trust and that embody your philosophy, right? Like, look, I know that my meetings need to start no earlier than 10 and end no later than 11:30. If that's my limitation, and I'm actively and aware and managing that and working with my staff to put me in the best light and to do things, like that's one thing versus
Well, but I
he's
mean,
just as clueless about what they're doing as he is about everything else.
I can't fault the guy on that ground. I don't think any of us, when we get there, are going to know we're there. I think that's just a fact of life.
Okay, so
because
that's where I want to put that shoe on the other foot, though. This is what I'm saying. Uh, again, not and again because I want the country to succeed, not to fail. I hope to God that Donald Trump is his full self for the next 4 years, and
but you
all is
don't.
good. But if he's not, what happens? And it's like the things that you say. Well, there's accountability. He fires people that don't agree with him, and this, like,
That's not what I
he's
said.
not going to
That's not what
know.
I said. He fires people that don't get the job done, not that don't agree with him.
Well, right, but that
Different.
he's ready to fire people, but he's not going to know. Again, I'm not trying to lay a trap here, but I don't think that he's as easy to manage as Joe Biden is. Even if they were both in their right mind, Joe Biden was absolutely much more receptive to handling by handler.
You say that, but I guess that's where I'm going. I don't think he knew he was just diminished enough that he couldn't push him off. That's different.
Right, but
But what
now,
your fear is that Trump is going to be out of it, but he's still going to be pushing all the buttons. Well, if he's pushing all
yes,
the buttons, he's not out of it. I mean, Joe Biden's not pushing the buttons because he's falling asleep. That's not, he's making the wrong decision. Your fear isn't that he's out of it. Your fear, I don't put words in your mouth, but I think your fear is that he gets old, instead of getting sleepy, he gets, mean drunk or something, which I think is kind of unfounded, because I don't know that that's really an issue when people age, that they turn into a maniac. I mean, typically, if the fear is that they lose their mind and they fall asleep in meetings.
well, yeah. I think maybe you're getting to the heart of the issue. I'm not sure that is the case. I'm not sure that. I think that's more of a typical pattern, but I don't know. I do think some people kind of lose their guardrails, and yeah, I guess if I think about it, yeah, I'm afraid that Trump will start to lose it and won't delegate to competent people to cover for him.
It's just, I don't mean for this to sound insulting. I just feel like it's like the Trump derangement syndrome has no boundaries. Like, I'm worried the guy is going to be a threat to the country. I'm worried the guy, all this stuff. Now I'm worried the guy is going to have a non-conventional aging pattern. And instead of becoming, having dementia and forgetting things and falling asleep, I'm afraid he's going to turn into a raging maniac that's going to press nuclear buttons. I think the bigger fear is the guy's forgetful and is off his game as he gets older. But that's the thing with Trump, because the left has this, I don't know, it's like this obsession that the worst possible thing is going to happen, even if there's no evidence to support it. Because I don't know, to me, that's kind of, we have a lot of these conversations around that. Like, well, I'm afraid he's going to do the most worst possible thing ever. And it's like, well, he hasn't. And I don't know.
It's interesting, though. You've characterized yourself, Trump. The primary thing you said early on when we started this podcast is you used words like he's inarticulate and he's not a smooth speaker, and he kind of again, I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but those were the exact words that you used. That you wish that he were clearer at explaining things because you thought that his positions were right. Is that going to get better as he ages?
Well, but I guess where I was going, it wasn't a function of not being able to remember or being diminished. It was more of a function of his communication style, which I think is very repetitive and not very. I mean, it's the same. If you saw an interview with him when he was 30 years old, he sounds the same way. He says the same thing over and over again, and it drives me nuts. I wish he would be more articulate. I wish he'd explain it, but it's not because he's lost it. It's just like his style is one of like, I'm going to repeat the same thing 10 times to make sure you get the point. But I don't think it's because he's stupid or old or senile. It's just that's his methodology of getting the point across.
Right. But
Different
what's
how I
that
would
going to
do it.
be like the older he gets? Is that going to be better or worse?
Well,
Or no change? You think no change?
again, I think if you go down a typical aging path, it's going to be forgetting it and not saying it. I mean, I'm not. I don't think he's going to be more on. He might be less on point because he's forgetting something as he gets older. Is how I would assume it'll happen over time. But
You're right about the fear, and I probably overhype it. The guy is like nails on a chalkboard to me, and it drives me nuts that he picks irrelevant, stupid shit to get people fired up that is just not important. And the part about him that drives me nuts more than anything, this is not fear that he's going to push the button just out of the blue. It's the fact that a guy who has no personal morality, uses culture war hot buttons just to fire people up. Like, and I just don't see that getting better. I think it's just going to be louder and more of the guy embodies a out of touch baby boomer, and that's going to get worse and worse. And I just, I'm going to dread listening to him. The thing is, you don't have to listen to Biden much. He stays in the basement. He hides
he
out.
can't speak, right?
Well, right. But that's not going to happen to Trump. And even if he starts to lose it, he's only going to kick and scream and call names and pick on people. It's just going to be ugly. And that's what I fear. I don't
Well,
fear that
it
we're going to have
doesn't sound
nuclear
like
war. I feel like we're going to have a jackass in the White House for 4 years.
it doesn't sound like it's going to get any uglier than it already is in your head.
Well, it's pretty ugly in my head. It is pretty ugly in my head. I got to say, it's just the whole thing is like every day shake my head. It's embarrassing to listen to it. It is.
Can you give me some recent examples that I'm just curious? I mean,
They're eating the dogs.
did he say that recently, or that was the
No,
debate?
just on national television during the presidential debate. Just
Yeah,
just
no, I
then.
mean, I'm just saying, like on a daily basis, you're seeing stuff, or is it more like there's things he said in the past that it's like every time you see him, it doesn't matter what he says, you're going to be pissed, and because that's your thought of him. That's kind of, I mean, that's
Well, that's true.
Yeah.
There is nothing that the man could do. There is nothing that the man could do that would redeem him in my eyes. So I'm gonna hate what he says no matter what he could say good morning, and I'm like, see, that's what we're dealing with. This good morning stuff. I mean, like I admit it, but you act like that's a pathology of me. It's a freaking strategy for him. Like this is a design feature for him.
But it doesn't
I
bother me
am
like it bothers you, obviously. I'm not angry when I hear him talk like you are.
I am angry every time he talks.
And I'm not. I like a lot of what he has to say.
Yeah. I dislike
But
him
I'm
so
not
much that even
hearing,
things that he says that I would agree with, I don't want to agree with.
yeah,
And if you want to call that Trump derangement syndrome, that's fine. Again, I go back to this. You can't say, and this is one of these arguments that we had earlier on last season.
last
You
season. That's
can't
awful.
say this is just like, oh, it's just like politics as usual. It's not. It's a different animal. And if you're happy about it, that's great. But I'm not happy about it, and I'm not gonna be made happy about it, and I'm not gonna turn around on that. It's gonna suck for 4 years for me because the president of my country is gonna embarrass me.
He's not going to be the guy that everybody else was. And that's a problem.
Well, that isn't inherently a problem that he's different than everybody else. The fact is that he's different than anybody else because he's who he is. Yeah, I'm never gonna be okay with that.
So, in other news, yeah, I mean, again, back to the point of this podcast. I mean, don't take this wrong, but I don't care. I don't. I mean, I like the guy and I like what he stands for. And we love to talk. I'm never going to convince you that you're going to like him. There's nothing
No.
I'm going to say that's going to get you to like the guy. I can
No.
like everything he says and you cannot. But, again, back to the point of the podcast, it's like our purpose here isn't to change each other's minds.
No.
And what I found, I just laughed because I interjected when you said season. I was like, oh, we've got another season. Like, man, we're official now. We've got season.
This is episode 1 of season 2.
Yeah.
That's why I'm saying
Seems
that.
like, if we were going to do like reality show, we got to do something crazy. Like Kent dropped his drawers on season 1. Or episode 1 of season 2. But
some sort of clickbait title for the episode.
But honestly, I feel like this little interchange has kind of struck me in a way. The whole situation right now, like our view of the world isn't that much. The whole situation right now with Trump in office, or the Trump thing out there, and it's pretty much everybody I talk to that hates Trump. It has nothing to do with any issue. It's all personality driven.
I mean, we could go into policies that I think are foolhardy, but by and large, you're right. But it's deeper than you think. And I guess I want to speak up because I don't think that I'm alone in this. And I think one of the reasons dialogue has been so hard, this is a true point. I find this man so repugnant that I have struggled. The part I've struggled with, and one of the things that's my objective in this podcast, is to recapture for myself a measure of respect for you because you support him. And I have to actively rebuild that. The fact that you make, I want to say these things without sounding accusatory. I mean, it's a pretty accusatory statement, but like, I feel like you make excuses for his behavior. You paper over things that he says. It's like you've decided that he's where you want to be, and you don't hold critique over things that in any other human being you would find disgusting. And it's hard for me. It's a lost respect thing. And I'm not proud in saying this, but like, that's what I'm trying to recapture. And I come into this because you're my brother and I love you, and I know that you're a good human being and that you don't hate people because of where they're from, and that you like I know these things about you, but it bothers me that you countenance those things in the person that you hold as president. It bothers me that you elevate things that you think that he can do. Trying to think how to say this. Like if what you wanted was tax cuts, there are other ways to accomplish tax cuts other than the hand grenade strategy. And I struggle with that. And I think it's a real impediment to, you said this, and I don't think you meant it to be, you use the Trump derangement syndrome thing. Kyle, you can't say this guy isn't a legendary, out of phase with what we've had for politicians in our country and people that hold to a standard of decorum. And
yeah, that's why we voted for him, Kent. That's why we want a disruptor. That's why people came out in droves to support him this year. They don't want some jackass who's been the president for the last, 50 years saying the same crap and doing the same thing and going to the same parties and all the great decorum, but isn't getting stuff done. Now, I want to de-escalate here because I get a little loud, but I did want to get to a point. I really like where you're going with this, honestly. I like where you're going because I feel like you're saying where you are and why you're wanting to understand me. And I want to understand you. And it's the same thing. And that's why I feel like it's just funny because I feel like as much as you're kind of struggling to see where I'm coming from, I struggle to see where you're coming from. And because, I feel like every time we have a conversation, and to some extent the podcast, it always goes to, well, Trump's an asshole, Trump's an asshole, Trump's an asshole. I'm like, and it's like everybody that dislikes Trump, it's the same conversation. It goes down that path and it just gets to where it gets to this hyperbolic situation. And next thing you know, everybody's yelling at each other. And yeah, I don't understand why you despise him as much as you do. You don't understand why I like him as much as I do. And yeah, I don't.
Okay, but this is not that hard. I hear you. This is not that hard to lay out. Like, fill in the blank of names that you could have had the Access Hollywood tape on, and you would have thought that's okay. If the person in that conversation was a Democrat, would how many of those would you have been okay with? I mean, like, I'm picking one incident. Tell me who that's okay for.
Yeah, I'm not defending his words. They were
Okay.
despicable.
And that's what I'm saying. First, I guess what it boils down to is this.
So do you think,
Kyle,
I mean,
why do you want to change things so bad? I think things are fine. I think things have been fine for the last 50 years. Not perfect, but for the last 50 years, what country would you prefer to live in other than the United States of America?
I think it's a great country. I agree.
For the last 50 years, you said we've had these politicians say the same thing. They're ineffective. They're not doing things. BFD. It's still the United freaking States of America. Where else are you going to go? Why? What do you need to change? What are you worried about? What are you afraid of that it was so bad that you had to roll the hand grenade into the room? I don't understand that.
I mean, what's the other option? I should have voted for Biden or Liz Cheney and just get some schmuck to go up there and keep
Mitt Romney.
keep adding to the debt and keep bringing in another 20 million or 10 million illegals over the border and, inflation. Yeah, I just, that's the part I fundamentally disagree with you, that everything's peachy and we don't need to disrupt the apple cart.
I didn't say it was perfect. I didn't say it's peachy, but I think we're fighting a conventional war, and you brought a nuclear weapon to the war. This is a knife fight, and you brought a gun. Is what this feels like. I think that's what, and I don't get it. It doesn't seem like that kind of fight to me. And now, I didn't say the country's perfect, but for the last 100 years, there's not another country I'd rather live in.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like it's broken. It feels like a course correction would make sense. It does. Are you not afraid? And again, I'm not trying to be elevated in this. Are you not afraid of a country that is as solid as we have been? Not perfect. You don't think that the downside risk of, I almost dropped an F-bomb here. The downside risk of this is, is there no downside risk to a disruptor who's going to shake all things up?
I liked what he did in the first term, but I think he could have done more. And I thought he did great in the first term. The campaign
Is there no risk, though?
made,
Is there no risk of somebody who pulls us out of NATO? Is that not a risk? Because I think that's a risk.
well, I think I 100% agree with everything he said about NATO. It's bullshit that we're funding all these other people's military. And I think his approach to NATO has been terrific. And I don't think that NATO needs to extend to every country in Europe. Bottom line, I feel like there's this fear like he is just going to go crazy and break everything. I loved what he did in the first term. He did great as a president the first term. Had the COVID pandemic, and everybody wants to say, well, he did a horrible job. I think both sides could have done a horrible job. I think it was a once in a lifetime pandemic and screwed a lot of things up. But
a point of order,
I will say
that the vaccine acceleration was a success under the Trump administration.
So, I mean, I guess my point is just like, I liked everything he did. I don't think the guy's perfect. Yeah, I think the guy is far from perfect, but I don't think that all these other assholes are the epitome of morality that you put up on a pedestal. I mean, you hear audio recordings of Lyndon Johnson spouting out the N-word. He wasn't particularly great guy, but he did.
Agreed.
If you're on the left, you think he did some wonderful things for the civil rights, even though the guy was clearly a racist. So, I mean, I don't know that you think that, but
Johnson's a very nuanced figure, even within the left. But be that as it may, yeah, I hear you.
I think I've just stumbled on it. This is how I'm going to navigate our future disagreements with Donald Trump. You put it in my head. Trump is a very nuanced person on the right, Kent.
Kyle, I'm not going to lie. Trump is the least nuanced human being that's ever walked the face of the earth. You see everything about him from 100 miles away. And yeah, I don't think there's a
Well, then
lot to it.
but I mean, back to Johnson. I mean,
Because Johnson, for all of his downsides, and I think that he was particularly bigoted towards black people, but Johnson absolutely had a deep compassion for Hispanics. And Johnson was deeply concerned about poverty and income inequality. And he is nuanced because, I know a lot of people that were, active leftists during the administration. And like on the one hand, they loved him for the war on poverty. And on the other hand, they wanted to kill him for expanding the war in Vietnam. That's what I mean about nuanced, is that you had people, there was a love-hate relationship with the guy across the board. I wish there was a love-hate relationship with Trump.
there's
I
absolutely a love-hate relationship. I love him, you hate him. We've got
No,
to figure it out.
I mean, I'd love to see, like I said, I would say that Johnson had within his own party people that supported him, but also were cringy about things that he said and did. And part of me thinks that in your heart, you know that some of the things about this man are really problematic. And I don't know if you're posturing
Hey,
because you don't want to show that to
before you
me.
go there, you just said in one instance that people had many problems with Johnson, but you're not ready to say Johnson was a horrible human being.
Mm, I don't know. He might have been. I don't know. I don't know enough
My
about it to
point
say
is
that.
just my point is that we all, and again, you're going to go down a path. I know it's predictable. You're going to go down a path. Well, he's different than everybody else, and he's a bigger scumbag than everybody else. I don't think you know that, Ken. I don't think you know that Donald Trump is a more immoral person than anybody else in the history of the presidency, because there's a lot of shit that happened in the White House with Kennedy and women.
Sure.
There's a lot of racism out there. I just feel like with Trump, you've got the morality issues, which I fully agree that he's not the most moral guy on the planet. Got it. But I think what makes Trump more problematic, and I'm making this up, I don't know if this is true, but I think what makes him more problematic for a guy like you isn't the fact that he was immoral in some way, but that he's also a brash personality that you abhor. I mean, if Johnson was also, had the personality of Donald Trump, you probably wouldn't think fondly of it.
Yeah. I'm not super fond of Johnson. I think there's some truth to what you're saying. I guess, and we started off talking about Biden's incompetency, and we've made the last half hour me bitching about Trump. So sorry.
I love
I
it.
I still think though, I think the part of it that is so, and I feel particularly able to speak to this because I was a Republican during the Clinton administration, and the pearl clutching and outrage of the right over Clinton's moral failings. Like, this guy is worthless and we got to run him out of town.
I think is BS.
Well, but you can't say it wasn't there.
It was totally there. It was
It was
absolutely the
totally there.
whole reason behind
And
it.
the same people that were leading that charge, the Ken Stars of this world,
Yeah,
are now the ones that are like, well, I mean, yeah, they're all bad guys, and I like the tax
that
cuts
is
and the.
100% fair criticism. No, I think that's 100% fair criticism. Wholeheartedly agree with you. I think Clinton. I didn't agree with a lot of what Clinton did, but I still think he's one of the more brilliant minds that we've had in the White House. He was a brilliant guy, and he's extremely charismatic.
Last time we balanced the budget in this country, Clinton.
Well, and the party that voted for Donald Trump, if you looked at all the people that voted for Donald Trump, it's probably a lot closer to people that voted for Clinton than voted for other Republicans.
In terms of the electorate, you're right, and I think I think what you said there is a really important and critical piece of this, because the electorate, the people that voted for Clinton, are the ones that voted for Trump, and there's a chunk of those people that are not party loyalists that are up for grabs. But the part that really galls me, and again, I call it derangement syndrome if you want, feels to me like the most intense hypocrisy for people who were just like, Clinton's doing stuff that they love. They balance the budget. We're cutting
Yeah.
taxes. Like, but well, he banged an intern, so
Yeah.
And now we got this guy. I mean, Bill Clinton was a pretty bad guy in his personal life. We got a guy who could give him a run for his money. And it's like, whoa, that shift again for the rank and file that voted for Clinton and then voted for Trump, but that movable part, I got no problem with them. I think they've been honest brokers of their vote. Leadership people of the party, come on, man. You played that card during the 90s with Clinton that he's scum and we're going to do this. And now we got a guy who is like provably scum by those yardsticks. It's like, well, not a big deal. And
No, I
that
agree. I
that really
agree.
is the part that galls me.
I agree that is something to gull you, but I put it right back on you, Kent. If you thought that a person with moral failings is possible of something good, then that's not the disqualifier of Trump. This is moral failings. The
I
disqualifying
didn't support. I'm talking about Clinton's good stuff in hindsight. I didn't vote for him ever. I didn't support him as president, and I thought he should have been removed as president because of the things that he did.
Do you still hold true to that?
I do. I do.
Okay.
Yeah, I think Bill Clinton wound up doing great things. I don't think he was of sufficient character that he ought to have been entrusted with that office. And when he violated things that he did, the whole Lewinsky thing was shocking and shameful. And he should have been removed as president. He should have been convicted with his impeachment. He should have been moved out of the office. I don't think it's okay to be that. And so, I think you're going to find a lot of people that are just going to blow the way the wind did. And you may think that about me, but I occupy a unique position that I was one of those throwing stones at Bill Clinton, and I'm one of those throwing stones at Donald Trump. And if you think I'm wrong, that's fine, but I think I've been consistent on that. I don't think it's okay for someone to occupy the highest office in this land and to have those kind of things in their past.
Okay. That makes sense.
It's very convenient when I switch parties. It suits my.
Yes. Yeah. It threw me when you switch parties. I'm like, wait a second. I thought you liked Clinton. All right.
No, at the time I thought Clinton was a piece of crap.
On hindsight, he was a pretty good president.
Yeah. I think this would be a fun series is to break down former presidencies. One of the things that was best about Bill Clinton is that he knew where he was good and he knew where he needed people to shore him up. And as much as I love Bill Clinton's presidency in hindsight, from an economic standpoint, it was Robert Rubin that was the architect of the whole thing.
Yeah.
You put a Secretary of the Treasury comes out of Goldman Sachs, they know what they're doing.
Well, and then as you get into the morality element of it, you got to think too about, okay, what level of morality are you talking about? There's the salacious public stuff. There's also, what kind of an individual were you, and how much stuff is below the surface? And it's like, I feel like a lot of what we know about our candidates today is a lot more than probably we knew in the past. And like the whole Kennedy thing, the Kennedy girlfriends, and these things that you don't.
Which was not as much of a secret in the day as it's portrayed now. I mean, I think people knew that he was a bit of a, but anyway, sorry not to interrupt.
No, it's just a question of like, what is the level of morality? Like what's the bar? What's the standard? Because you're not going to get somebody perfect. That isn't going to happen. You're going to get somebody who has flaws in some way. And so what flaws are acceptable for the office and which are?
Well, and what I hear you saying is it depends on what they do for you.
Well, or does it depend? I'm exploring this. I'm not necessarily stating one way or the other.
Is there something about Trump? Would there be something in his past that would make him, that would disqualify him in your mind? Even if you agree with where he's going in leadership, is there anything that would put you over the edge? Serious question.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think, I honestly think, I don't know, that's a good question. Um, the problem is, I think a lot of the things that you assume he is, I don't necessarily believe he is. Like,
Yeah.
you assume he's a racist and he hates Mexican people. I don't think that's the case.
I don't think that. There's a point of order. I don't think that. But I think that he doesn't care enough about it to not play that card. I don't think he's a racist, but I think he's more than happy to bring racists into his coalition and throws enough out there to lead him on to make him feel like people that are racist, I think, can look at him and some of the things that he says and think, yeah, you're one of us.
Hmm.
He doesn't put that out of people's mind. He doesn't tell them to go to hell. I don't want your vote if that's the way you are.
I mean, he said, again, we went down that path in the last podcast. I mean, he said things about white supremacists and people that hate that is unacceptable, but not to the level that's going to satisfy you. I mean, I think something in office, I think the problem with Clinton wasn't, if he'd had an affair with some lady, which he probably did before the White House, that probably wasn't number one. I nobody disqualified him for that. Yeah, I think if Trump had sex with a prostitute in the White House, yeah, that would be a disqualifying factor. The fact that
should we write that should we write this down?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I mean, and I think he probably did some things before he was president that I wouldn't agree with. I mean, he paid off Stormy Daniels. Did he have sex with her? We weren't there. We don't know. Everybody thinks he did. Where there's smoke, there's fire. He paid her off. I get it, but I don't think that was a felony. They called it a felony because they tied it to a federal crime that they couldn't actually identify.
Which was a huge mistake, by the way. And this would be another podcast episode, honestly. The overreach in the courts was a huge problem. We gave him on a platter some real softballs with those court cases. 100%.
So, I mean, the Access Hollywood thing, yeah, that's not an appealing thing for a presidential candidate to say, but at the same time, somebody said something bad prior. Those, in my mind, aren't disqualifiers. I get that they're objectionable, as I object to them. That's how I think is an appropriate thing to say. I mean, I
don't think he should be president because of that, and I don't think Bill Clinton should have been president because of the things that he did in office. And if it had been known, I don't think Jack Kennedy should have been president.
So somebody says something unbecoming in their past, they shouldn't be president.
No, I wouldn't say that.
What Trump said was prior to running for president, right? He said something.
Yeah, I wouldn't say just any old thing objectionable is disqualifying. I think that was disqualifying. I think that the way that he's conducted his life, I don't know. I mean, you can think I'm crazy, but I don't think it's okay.
His life in what ways? And divorces and
yeah, 3 wives. Was you don't think he was banging Stormy Daniels? That seemed pretty obvious to me, but maybe not. But
I mean, affairs and multiple wives are disqualified. Then I mean, you're going to have to take out about half the presidents.
Well, maybe not Mitt Romney.
Reagan's out.
Not Mitt Romney. Not Jimmy Carter. Not Gerald Ford. Right? Like, I don't know.
Is that? But okay. But
not George Bush. I mean, don't dumb it down to that. We can have higher standards than that. This doesn't need to be specific about Trump.
That's fine. But I'm not arguing with you, but I'm arguing with other people of your ilk who give me a hard time about the morality of Trump, and many of them have been married multiple times. Well, what the hell? I mean, if multiple marriages is the disqualifier? Okay.
I'm not saying that in particular, although.
Is that
if you're married 3 times and you're cheating on the third? I don't know. And maybe look, I haven't thought this through. Like I haven't written out a code of what I think is okay for the president. I think that Bill Clinton messing with Monica Lewinsky in the White House was wrong, and he should have been removed as president.
Well, I guess I have a lot of respect for you, Kent, and I'm not saying this to blow smoke up your ass, but that's what I like about this podcast. I mean, that viewpoint that Clinton should have gotten impeached and kicked out, and somebody shouldn't be president because they had more than 3 wives. You are absolutely not in lockstep with members of your party on those views.
Agreed.
And I respect that. That's good.
Agreed. Well, thank you. To bring this back a little bit, the party that has portrayed itself as the family values party, and we're not like all of these crazy people with their gender thing, like you kind of can't have it both ways. We're either we're going to adopt a conservative social code or we're not. And I think that's the hypocrisy part that bothers me. And it's really been a struggle for me. It's been a struggle for me. You can't have it both ways.
But you can't conflate everything either. The fact that we don't want to define gender with 50 different genders, you say, well, you can't have that viewpoint if you've had 3 wives. I mean, I feel like there's this like moral mission creep that gets into this where it's like, oh, well, you're a bad guy, so you obviously can't say this, you can't say that. I mean,
but you can't say that there's not a straight line from the people that were just like, oh my goodness, Bill Clinton, I can't believe this. There's a straight line between that.
Yeah.
And again, the gender thing is a nuanced thing because there's a lot packed into that. And I don't want to paper over that.
No,
I'm just saying that you can't do this like, oh, we're the conservative. We're all about the family. And the liberals are just trying to destroy your family. They're just horrible people and morally bankrupt. Oh, except Trump, but the tax cuts are okay. That's the discontinuity that I'm talking about. And we can talk about the pieces of that independently. I know.
Let me just be clear in case it's unclear with you. Donald Trump is not my morality North Star. That's not who I'm looking for morality. But I agree with a lot of his policies. And I think a lot of his not just his policies, I agree with his approach and positions on things that matter and things that will have impacts on our family life. But
look, fair enough. And I think that this is the thing. We're probably over time, but
it's good. This is the first of the season. It's got to be a blowout for the first of the season, kids. I mean, come on.
Well, I guess, and I don't mean to keep dragging it back to this ad hominem stuff. Look, I realize how problematic that is, but that discontinuity is the thing that has colored this from the get-go. And it does bake into I got to say, I'm disappointed that you use the Trump derangement syndrome. Like I'm a pretty rational person. You don't have to agree with my opinion, but I'm a pretty rational person. And I don't think that I've got some malady. I think the fact that Trump as a human being is outside the mainstream of what we've had as presidents, and that it's glaring to me that the party that would have dethroned Bill Clinton, who turned out to be a pretty good president, just thinks Trump's A-okay and fine.
Well, and again, just to peel that back a little bit, yeah, not trying to be insulting by using your Trump derangement. I guess when I say that, what I mean by that, I'll use it another term. I'm going to call it the Trump conflation or something. There's some other term, but I feel like there is this every bad freaking thing that could possibly happen, could potentially happen in the future, is going to happen because Trump, because he's bad in this way, he's bad in this way, he's bad in this way. I just feel like he becomes this catch-all for every bad possible thing that could ever happen. Like the guy's not going to age like normal people. He's going to age into a homicidal maniac, or he's going to be a fascist, even though he likes the Jewish people and blah, blah, blah. And, there's this viewpoint that, he is the worst guy on the planet and is going to do the worst possible things. And the only other thing I would challenge you on is, again, back to our conversations around the electorate. I don't think the same people that are trashing Bill Clinton are trashing Donald Trump. I think a lot of the people that were trashing Bill Clinton are never Trumpers.
Well, true. Yeah. Although there's nuance to that.
We're nuanced. So yeah, this is a great start for the next season. And, I feel like our conversations often go down this spiral of the Trump spiral, but maybe that's just part of where we're at today. and we got to be able to have these kind of dialogue back and forth.
I gotta say, for me, the reason it keeps coming back to that is because that's the thing that I can't get over. It's the part that is so hard for me because it is such an obvious departure from things. It's a really hard point for me. And I don't think I'm alone on that. I think that this is a big part of why it's been so disruptive in families across the country. And people are struggling with this.
Well, and they're struggling on both sides. You struggle with it from the point you said. I struggle with it because I feel like every time we have a conversation, it goes down this path. But that said, we need to keep going down that path because that's what this is about: is being able to talk this out and not yelling at each other. We raised our voice a couple of times. I don't think we yell. Like yell is like screaming into the microphone. We haven't done that yet, so that's good.
To me, the red line that we need to avoid is the ad hominem. You're a blank or a blank or a blank, and I've not done that. I steered clear of the what F bomb. You're really close. But
can the producer beep? She's gonna have to start beeping here pretty soon.
No, I'm gonna keep my hands clean on that. I got through it.
Awesome.
Been a good talk. Thanks, Kyle. Hey, thanks for joining us on this episode of Bourbon and Rum Podcast. We hope you enjoyed it. Remember to subscribe on your favorite platform and leave us a review. Your feedback helps us keep the good spirits flowing.
And we invite you to join this conversation. Follow us on our Facebook page. Let us know what you think. Let us know what you want to hear.
And until next time, cheers.